Greetings, I'm Mr. O'Neill. I teach English language arts online for Stride K12. I also coach esports for Stride K12. And we'll take a look at the winter season week 2 club arena for the K12 Esports League. And here we go. Okay, so the tournament has just started, and it looks like we have a couple of games in the books already. Yeah, I did have one draw against I Rookrolled You. One of the best games I've ever played. And if you're drawing someone who's rated 2103 and rapid, then that's quite the accomplishment. That was a long time ago, several months ago. And it was a legitimately drawn endgame as well. Okay, so I Rookrolled You. Has a solid position, as does Budgie 10. The pawn on d4 is a little bit isolated. Not supported by the c pawn. Two attackers on d4, also two defenders. This is coming eventually. But on e5, two defenders, or three defenders actually. So can't push it yet. I Rookrolled You probably wants to castle, yeah. So then finally castle. The rook wants to come to e1. This rook eventually probably wants to come here. And then this bishop might be placed better here. And then you've got this diagonal on the rook once the rook gets to e1. Ooh, pushing f6 right away. It's weakening the light squares for Budgie 10 because now this is weak. These are going to be long-term weaknesses, and then you've got this diagonal against the king long-term. But white does not have a light square. Oh, white does have a light squared bishop right here. So long-term, white wants to probably take with the light squared bishop and exploit this light diagonal because this is very weakening. That's normally why you don't want to play f7, because it's weakening your king side. And then e6 is weak now too. Notice how there's actually no defenders for e6 at the moment. So like takes, rook e1, and then you'll just start applying pressure on e6. Like you'd have to put this knight back to b8 so the bishop can defend e6 from behind, and putting your knight on b8 is a pretty ugly move. I guess you could capture with the knight right now. Yeah. Capture with the knight, and then your knight's on a more active square. And then eventually your knight may want to come to e4 afterward, supported by the pawn. But if you get your knight on e4, then there's takes. This knight has to move. Oh, taking with the bishop. Yeah, because then that creates an extra attacker on f4. So now you got three attackers and three defenders. I think the point of c7 was to try to support this pawn push. Because now there's only 2 defenders. And you've got you've got 1, 2, 3, 4. You got 4 defenders on e5. So I think you're ready to push e5 if you want to. This bishop needs to get developed though. So like b5, develop your bishop. This rook wants to come here. This rook wants to come here. And then you've got these rooks on these files. And you've got your bishop here on this diagonal. So again, you want your bishop on this diagonal. You want to develop this pawn. There you go. And then this rook here, this rook here. This is the setup that you want. That's what I would do if I was budgie 10. Okay, so going after the weak backwards pawn immediately, so now you kind of have to go rook to e8. And you definitely don't want to develop this knight to b6, because then you're blockading your own pawn, and then you're blockading your bishop from developing to b7. But I mean, maybe you don't want your bishop on b7. Maybe you want to keep your bishop here. But the problem with keeping your bishop here to defend e6 is it's difficult to get your rook in the game. Yep. I mean, takes. You're weakening I rook rolled use pawn structure there. Maybe I rook rolled use trying to get fork. So you've got takes. This is a threat, and then takes, and then you've got a check with a fork. That could be what's going on. I don't think budgie 10 would fall for that, though. Yeah, so budgie 10 won the exchange, and now they're... Yeah. So now you're threatening checkmate, and you have to play this to defend against checkmate. I think you... Or that. I mean, you could still play e8. Just creating a pin. There's also g6. But I guess budgie 10 would probably just capture with the knight instead of the pawn, because the pawn's pinned against the king right now. Yeah. So, I was thinking check, and then you kind of have to take with the bishop, and then... Oh yeah, I guess the queen's defending from behind. That wouldn't have worked. Okay, so the point is that if you take with the pawn, then you're getting hammered on the e-file. So rook to e8, as expected. Getting hammered on the e-file. And now double up for rook to e1, probably. Ah. That's a strong move, because now you've got a double attack on the knight. And you have to defend it somehow. I think you're just losing a knight now, because this is tough. Budgie 10's in huge trouble here, even though they're winning by 4 points. And you're also attacking this knight, but I mean, it's being defended by the bishop, but there's no way to get an extra defender on this knight, is the problem. So you have to create some loot for your king, so something like this. I think h6 is forced. h6 or h5, one of those two moves. You've got to have some loot for your king. Yeah, so now we see h6. And then h7 is forced. Unless you want to sacrifice, which isn't going to happen. And that's not checkmate because the queen's defending from d6. And I rickrolled you has plenty of time to figure this out. I think you need g2. Wow. And you can't take with the pawn because of the pin. So you're forced to take with the queen, or yeah, that's brutal. What a move. Look at that sequence. Look at how I rickrolled you figured this out. It's queen here, check with the royal fork, and then you have to take with the queen because you're going to lose your queen. That's just brutal. That's just brutal. Wow, what a game. What a game. I mean, that's just such a brutal sequence, though. Look how they were able to figure this out. I mean, you've got to be a high-level player to figure this out. So in this position, I rickrolled you has 6:35 on their clock. And at 5:54, they finally figured it out and moved. So it took them 41 seconds. It took them 41 seconds of calculating this. Check. That's forced. Check. Cannot take with the pawn because of the pin. The pawn's pinned by the queen. And you're also forking the queen. And if the king moves here for safety, you're losing your queen. So you've got to sacrifice your queen. And then you're taking back with the pawn. Still cannot take the pawn because of the pin. So you have to take that way because you could not take with the pawn because of the pin. You had to take with the king. And at that point, I mean, you still have this nasty pin. This is a nasty pin against the rook, so the bishop cannot develop because then you're losing another rook. So you have to develop this way, and then you're trying to develop this way. Like, you want your bishop here so you can retake your rook or defend the rook. But you don't have enough time. You just run out of time to put your bishop on. Remember earlier in the game when I said put your bishop on b7? Like in the very beginning of the game, I said put your bishop on b7 and it didn't happen? Well, this is why. And then now you've got the double attack on the bishop. And then you're down the exchange again. And then you're getting forked eventually. Yep, there's the forking the knight and the king. It's game over at that point. And then Budgie 10 lost on time. But Budgie 10, rated 1844, has beaten me. Budgie 10 has beaten me. Yeah, Budgie 10's beaten me twice. Budgie 10's a really, really good player. So, Ironbat 7 already has 13 points. Wow. We're off to a good start. Let's take a look. I've beaten Ironbat twice. H6, bishop to h6 would be decent. Because the dark squares are very weak for black in this position. Especially these ones right in here. These are all weak. These are weak dark squares. M. Bilal 1238. Chess.com Elo 342. Ironbat 7 Chess.com Elo 433. Maybe thinking about pushing again. Probably want to put your bishop on b2 so that you can start getting some attackers on this pawn. That's just a sacrifice. Yeah. Ooh. Bishop to. Hold on. Bishop to bishop to e3 would have been nasty. You can't actually take the bishop on e3 because of the pin. Rook against the queen. Nasty pin. So bishop to c3 would have been just fine. I mean, bishop to b2 works as well. Either way. Okay, still taking advantage of the pin. So now you can take with the rook. Eventually you want to take with the rook, and then you're going after the queen. The rook's being supported by the bishop. There you go. Now you also have a pin this way, so you don't want to lose your c-pawn because of the pin in that direction. So if the rook takes, luckily you can still retake with the knight. And then if the bishop takes, then you can take the rook. This is checkmate. h8 is checkmate. Okay, that stopped it. But now you can take with the rook. Ooh, or take with the knight, I mean. Take with the knight. Take with the knight, take with the knight. That's a sacrifice. Now, if the queen takes, then you can exchange queens, and then you have a winning endgame. Bishop and rook. Oh! Yeah, I guess you can still take with the bishop. There you go. Still threatening checkmate on h8. Bishop's defending the queen. There you go. So now this is a winning endgame. Just have to promote. Oh, you got to be careful not to stalemate, though. Okay. Yeah, there's no stalemate here. Let's see if they can deliver a checkmate. Ironbat 7 has 4 wins already. So this would be their first loss of the arena. Potentially. Rook to f2. There you go. Oh, they didn't do rook to f1. They did rook to d3, which is still checkmate. The Lemur Jedi. Another usual suspect. They are 4 for 4. Murray II and Murray III are also in the tournament. Okay, so here we go. Murray III and the Lemur Jedi. How'd we get to this position? So King's Gambit. Oh, they're calling it the Vienna Gambit. That's just a knight, yeah. And a pawn. And you've got... Oh, could have taken en passant there if you wanted to. Could have taken en passant. So when they move the pawn twice, and these pawns are even on the same row, then it's as if the pawn was on d6 before they got to d5, which means you can take diagonally with the, with the pawn this way, which is called en passant, which is French for in passing, I believe. So after there, you can take en passant this way. And then your pawn on e5 would go to d6. And then this pawn would disappear because you just captured it. But you can only do that for one move. After you make a move, then you can't do en passant anymore. So now white can't do en passant anymore because they went knight to f3. Creating a pin. Okay, so have some strong center pawns. Yeah, that pawn was not being defended, and then probably could also go like this, but then you've got takes. You're losing the exchange. But normally, if the queen is not on the 5th row, if the queen was anywhere else other than the 5th row, you could have gone queen to a5 to create a battery there. But okay, yep, that pawn's not being defended. Smart move. Now you have the battery of your own. Yeah, the bishop's also defending the knight, so you can't take the knight yet. And you also don't want to lead with the queen on these exchanges. If these pieces are being defended by other minor pieces, you don't want to lead with the queen because then you're losing your queen. So now the queen's defending. So yeah, the queen takes. Yeah, bishop's covering. Queen's still covering though too. So this is technically an even position, but it's as if white is down a rook because this rook is so inactive. And now you're losing the rook. After, so you've got a pin here. So the king's in check, king moves. Oh, because then you're losing your rook this way. Yeah, so you can't take. I mean, you could take this rook, but then you're losing this rook with check. So makes sense. White wants to queen. This is a winning endgame for black. Or actually, this might be a draw. This is a theoretical draw. Because the black king's too far away. okay, that works. So now you have to take the pawn, yeah. So the reason why I said no right here is because if it was me, I would have just stuck my rook on like c8 or b8 or a8. I would have stuck my rook over here somewhere just to defend against this. But this still works because of the pin. The pawn cannot be promoted to a queen yet because of the pin. So now the king is stepping out of the pin and ready to promote the pawn. Cannot put the rook here, obviously, because then you're losing your rook and losing the game. So you have to take the pawn. Good game. Okay, so let's see. How did we get to this position for the chess game FR and Admiral Aqua? Okay, so queen's pawn opening. Exchange variation. Taking the queen right away is smart, because now black has lost their ability to castle. Have to move the knight, because the knight was being threatened. Ah, why didn't you take the bishop back with the pawn? Okay, I'm a little confused here, because, I mean, you can... So here, I think you would probably want to take here, and then win the rook. Otherwise, if you slide your bishop back to save it, then you've got like this to save the rook. So you can take en passant here if you want to, which does not happen in the game. More exchanges, which makes sense for the game chess FR since they're already up by 5 points, the equivalent of a full rook. Probably you could have blocked with the pawn there. That works too. And then rook to d1 with check, castle, double up your rooks on the d file. Admiral Aqua, what flag are they representing here? The Netherlands. Ooh, I didn't even see that. Kind of a smothered checkmate because the bishop's covering here. Knight can't go there, or the king cannot go to c8 because of the bishop. So, nice semi-smothered checkmate. Okay, so we've got Weightless 952 and Dream Angels 88. We've seen Dream Angels 88 before. In fact, have I played against them? I can't remember. But Dream Angels 88 is 3-0 against Weightless 952 all time. So King's opening, 4 Knights variation, and Copycat variation, and creating the pin. Probably could have taken with the knight here. And then you're hitting the queen and the rook. Okay, now you're losing your knight. Oh, why don't you just take the knight right here? Just take the knight. Now you're losing your bishop. I'm so confused. I mean, it makes sense to move your knight out of the way since your knight was being threatened, but now you're losing your bishop. This is why when you get this attack, you want to take with the knight, not the bishop. Because the knight is forking the queen and the rook. And the knight is less valuable than the queen and the rook. So you definitely want to take with the knight there. Then you're winning something. Oh, just take the bishop. Why didn't you take the bishop? No. No. Gotta take the bishop with the king. Now the bishop can escape. Weightless 952, you had a winning position there. Now you can now you can kick the knight away. There you go. Kick the knight away. Now take the bishop. Okay. Now it's back to an even position. Now, takes royal fork. No, that was. I mean, that still works because then you could take the bishop. But if you took. Oh, I forgot this knight was covering. I didn't even see the knight on f6. I didn't even see the knight on f6 because the reason why I didn't even see the knight on f6 is because I had it in my mind. Take the knight first. Takes. Then you deliver the check, and you've got the royal fork. Right? Yeah. Takes, royal fork. You're going to win the queen. Okay? Or takes, if they take with the pawn, check. You're going to win the bishop. Or take with the king, you still have the fork, check, still win the bishop. Okay, now you can take the rook with check. Double up next time. I mean, that works too, but double up the rook, so you have this battery. This rook really wants to come over to e1 to put pressure on the king. Winning the bishop, if they see it. Nope, not anymore. There you go. Now you're going to win the queen. The royal pin. Queen pinned against the king. The royal pin. Nice. The queen can't move because you can't put yourself into check. So basically you have to take the rook. And then you're down the exchange. Yep. Double attack. Up by 12 points now. Okay, so we'll take a look at this game between Dead Zone 222 and the chess game FR. And Dead Zone 222 is 1626 chess.com elo. The chess game FR has a chess.com elo of 1397, so hoping to pull an upset. Queen's opening, immediately accepting the gambit. This is the Queen's Gambit accepted old variation. A lot of times you'll see this pawn go to e4 right away, just to grab up more space on the center. And then it also opens up this bishop. But instead we have e3. And then takes. And usually, I mean, you could slide this bishop back to defend, or like you could even develop the knight by putting the knight here, but then you have to worry about this pin. So, whoops, then you'd have to worry about the pin if you put the knight here. So either way. But this is a little bit weakening on the king side, f3. I mean, it makes sense to an extent, but you're committing to castling queen side or castling king side and you'd have a weak side in either case. So Now you can see the bishop has moved a bunch, 3 times already, and then in exchange, white's gotten their pawns developed and has a lot of really nice space in the center. So continuing to develop, and yeah, that wins a piece, because if the knight goes back to block the check, then you're just losing the knight with the pawn. So white's already up material. Excuse me, white is already up material here. And then, oh, I guess not, because the queen's defending. Yeah. Forgot about the queen defending. That is, at the very least, creative. The pawn can't take because of the pin against the king, but the knight can take. So they don't take. That's also extremely creative. Yeah, because so the issue is that if you take this way, then this is mate in 1. Knight to d6. You can't block the check. You can't block the check this way because you're still in check. And you can't take the knight because you're still in check. It's a double check, so that's checkmate. So e6 is the move here, which now you still have a bunch of pieces hanging, and then it also unleashes your bishop to get developed. Mate in 5. There's check. Good move. And there's checkmate. Rook's defending the queen. Nice game. And this is an upset. Nice upset. Dead Zone 222 is not a weak player by any means. They're a pretty strong player. So really nice win for the chess game FR. Take a look at the next one. James 317349, who has a Batman logo for their pick, and specifically that Batman logo is from 1989, Michael Keaton Batman, if I remember correctly, playing against Cool 18 LP. Okay, so King's Indian, and you could also take with the pawn there, but then you're blocking your bishop in, so taking with the bishop's better. Okay, so after all those exchanges, Cool 18 LP is up by 3 points here, because the issue is that, you are hitting this pawn twice, but black is also defending twice. So since black is defending the same amount of times, then you don't want to take, but they end up taking anyway. And trying to take advantage of the pin. So if you take, then you're losing your queen, because the black queen is undefended here. Getting back in the game, only down by a point now. Oh, you could take with check here, but that works too. Now you're losing your queen because of the discovered attack against the the discovered attack against the king once the knight moves. Oh, yeah, you can just block. Forgot about that. Yeah, so you just move the queen to block the check. That works perfectly fine. Now you've got a rook against a rook and 2 minor pieces. So black is clearly winning here. +4. And lost 2 pawns right away, so now you're, black's only winning by 2. And look at all these pawns. So these pawns eventually want to promote to a queen, and then these pawns, if they can stay protected, will fend off any queenside attack. Ah, so that's a pin. You just put yourself into a pin, and now these pawns can march down the board. Yeah, and now you're just losing your bishop because the bishop's not being defended there. You got to be careful. So now James 31-73-49 is winning by a point. And now you're losing your rook because of the pin. The king was pinned against the rook. And sacrificing the rook back, and then one of these pawns is going to promote. Got to be careful not to deliver a stalemate here. There you go. Back rank checkmate. Nice game and nice win for James 31-73-49. Really nice. Got those pawns to promote. I'll take a look at one more game. Anvoid 161 and Paper Player 59. Both of these players have played in the past quite a bit. So they have played each other once before, in which Paper Player 59 won that game. King's opening. 4 knights game, so you can see all 4 knights are developed on their usual squares. And then takes... Oh, normally you want to take with the queen. Normally you want to take with the queen because this weakens your king side. And now your king's exposed. So winning by a pawn here after those exchanges. Taking with check. That e6 square was not being defended. So taking that pawn with check. Now you've got a double attack on the rook. Defending the rook. But you can take the rook anyway. So the rook couldn't move because of the pin. So could have also taken with the queen there. And then it forces an exchange. So, like, for example, you could take, and then queen takes, and then the bishop is going to take back. Or if the queen doesn't take, then, like, say the king moves somewhere to get out of check, then you're just going to take the queen back. And you're already winning by 7 points here. So you want to exchange as much as you can since you're winning by 7. But what happened in the game was taking with the bishop and then hitting the queen with the bishop. Ooh, nasty move. So your black's trying to put some extra pressure here. So this is a double attack. So you got the battery. And it's nice to have a double attack against this bishop, because black is hitting the bishop twice and white's only defending the bishop once. But the problem for black is after you take, you cannot take the bishop back because you're in check. So you have to deal with the check first. And then you're losing your queen. So, discovered attack. Once the bishop moved, the queen had a discovered check. And now it's just a matter of cleaning things up, and there's checkmate. All right, so that was a really cool tournament. Lots of good games. And we'll take a look at all of the events. So you can see here in the K12 Esports League, we've had 9 events played so far. Today is January 21st of 2026. So dating back to the fall of 2025, we've had 9 events. I Rookrolled You has won 6 out of those 9 events up to this point. And just for the winter season, I Rickrolled You has won both of the first 2 weeks so far. So specifically for week 2, which is what we covered today, I Rickrolled You, scored in first as we discussed, and then second place was the chess game FR. And then Trokdor the Lemur Jedi, third place. Congratulations to all 3 players for scoring in the top 3. Close behind, and Void 161, Paper Player 59. And then 6th through 10, Cool 18 LP, Budgie 10, Vincent, JK 2011, Dream Angels 88, and Rift Bando rounding out the top 10. Congratulations to all the players who won games and did well in week 2. Oh, I should also mention how many players we had total. So if you go to the second page, we had a total of 39 players just for week 2, which is awesome. So that'll do it. And have a good day, everybody.